So a key performance indicator is basically a metric that showcases your performance. It indicates whether you are doing a good or a bad job. It's pretty easy to understand, and if you pick the right KPIs, it becomes very easy to showcase how good of a job you are actually doing. I like to say that KPIs make goals tangible and help quantify the unquantifiable. Really, they pack a big punch in a small package. It lets you tell a big story in a small space, and it makes a strong impression fast. If you're able to not just say, I sent out 5 press releases this year, right? That's okay. But if instead you're able to say, I sent out 5 press releases, and my focus this year was to change the conversation from a lack of integrity in our government to all the great stuff we're doing from a Parks and Rec perspective, that is where you can start showcasing impact, right? And you're able to say, we got this many news stories, or the conversation of all the articles that were generated, 80% of them started talking about the Parks and Recs event versus corruption. That is when you start showing impact and your actual work. Numbers are easy to grasp. They simplify complex ideas, and they present concrete comparisons. They also bring authority. If you come to a meeting and somebody asks you how you're doing, you have numbers to show. People trust data, and obviously you have to make sure it's correct, but when you come prepared and you have a report that exactly explains your story and the work that you've done, people tend to listen and understand why it is that you're trying to make the request you're making. Lastly is show and tell. Now in English class, I was told a million times that I'm supposed to show, don't tell. I don't believe in that. I think you show and you tell. I think KPIs help show growth and can speak for you when it comes to justifying how good a program is doing. So if you've been given a task to grow public sentiment positively around a new aspect. Has anybody done that? Say, hey, I need you to go out and get people to get excited about one thing. Does that ring a bell at all? Yeah, okay. So if you're able to set, a certain baseline of, okay, this is where I'm at now, and over the course of the year, you showcase your impact and you showcase, all the efforts that you've done, and at the end of the year, you show a result, and there's a change. You have numbers to show that, you have graphs to show that. Being able to show the change and tell the story of how you affected that change while showcasing the actual performance itself, people start to recognize that you're more than just, somebody who answers reporters' calls. And lastly, and this is the big one, it answers the question, so what? You've done this, right? You've put out a press release, or you've gotten people to change their minds about something, or reporters changed a story, etc. What does that mean? So what? Why is that important? If you're able to answer that so what and kind of close the loop on what is important about the work that you do and how it impacts and furthers your agency's public objectives, now you're able to start showing much more of a realistic and real tangible result of your work. It's not just number of articles or this reach and impressions. It's a bit nebulous sometimes. It's ability to showcase specific results. Case in point, some sort of event, for example, and tying in growth in media coverage or growth in social coverage to attendance at an event, at a meeting, or public support for a specific initiative you might have. So, there's a lot of KPIs out there, and it can be kind of a confusing concept. Sometimes people get, they hear KPIs, and this is what comes to mind. They look at a board, and obviously this is doable, right? And there are things that look somewhat like this, but it's far away. So I think importantly, to start setting the right KPIs, the first thing you need to do is build consensus. Right? Understand that you're not just presenting these numbers to present them. You have to make sure that people agree with you that they are impactful, and you have a conversation with your leadership about what it is they want to see and what kind of change they want you to make. What questions are you trying to answer? And what are some of the metrics that address the story or the program that you're trying to communicate? So I pulled out a couple examples here. We can kind of go through them. I've separated them into like traditional media, kind of PR communications metrics, and social media metrics. So some comms metrics can be something like active coverage. Right? How many stories are there outside or in the world about my program? And have they grown over time? Internal share of voice. I am a division of a state agency, for example. How does my coverage compare to other divisions Or how does it compare to, looking top down, which of my agencies are getting the most coverage? External share of voice. I'm a CVB in a city, a large metropolitan city. How does my coverage compare to other large metropolitan cities with similar attractions? Potential reach. I put out a press release, I've sent out content, there's people talking about me. What are the total potential eyeballs that actually saw what we do? Sentiment. Right? So sometimes it's not enough to just say you've grown coverage. Is the coverage positive? Is it negative? Is it neutral? Is it in line with your message? Is it not in line with your message? There are really good ways to define sentiment. Obviously, don't always trust a sentiment rating machine. There's, you might have a different opinion of an article. Key themes. When people are talking about my program, what are they saying with it? Right? A word cloud is a really, really good way to see that. If you've got your agency name and you have bubbles around it and saying, hey, this is what people are saying with my agency in January, and now this is what people are saying in March, and this is what people are saying in June, that shows how you are impacting the conversation. More importantly, if you have a software like this, but if you're able to showcase the articles that you yourself are responsible for, and showcase the difference in conversation between organic coverage and earned coverage, you're able to showcase how you are communicating to media and what they respond to when you speak to them. Topic momentum. This is a bit of a new one, and I really like it. It is a word cloud, but with an added element of time, where you're able to say in one graph, old concepts that are no longer there, new concepts that are there, and consistent messages across a period of time. It's just, again, an easier way to combine and tell a story without having to go through 15 different pages. The more concise you can be, the easier it is to grasp. Some people still use ad value. There is a movement right now to move away from it in the PR world. There was a concept called the Barcelona Principles, which has moved away, but we basically saying that ad value is no longer a good enough way to showcase ROI. Historically, ad value has been, we got a placement in this article, right? This person wrote about us. How much would it have cost to get an ad placed in that article today? With the advent of internet and social media, that ad value metric is starting to fall away a little bit. When organizations ask me to still use that ad value, my recommendation is to use it as, again, a difference over time. Last year, I had $1 million of ad value for my event, and I had a $5,000 budget to promote that event. This year, we got a $7,000 budget, and there's a $3 million ad value. So same data, same set, and you're able to show that with a $2,000 investment, you grew your ad value by an X percentage. That is a valuable resource. But my recommendation is not to say, I got 100 articles, this generated $500 million in ad value. Not as many people buy that, if you will. Yes?
As a tactic for picking what key performance indicators work for what levels of senior leadership, as a practice I've used ad value equivalent only with the CFO.
Yeah.
When it comes time each year to talk budget and why I'm asking for a little bit more money or why I'm asking for another FTE, and it comes down to dollars and cents, I found CFOs will understand the ad value equivalent. It's a crappy way to measure your effectiveness, but it's a term that they'll understand in dollars and cents and return on investment.
Completely.
Other than that, I'm with you there. It doesn't mean much to everybody else in the room.
I completely agree, and I think that ad value is obviously based off of a circulation. So we have 1 million followers. It'll cost you X amount of dollars to get a placement in our article. I like to say that almost as tier up your outlets. You have your top tier outlets, your local outlets that those are the highest impact. Your trade outlets, your national outlets. Don't be afraid to segment those and say, okay, these are my tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and place a different value for each of those if you really want to dive into the ad value. Absolutely. Geographic breakdown. If you're a national agency, chances are you want to see what kind of coverage you're getting across the U.S., who's talking about what and where. If you're a state agency, that's fine too, able to say, okay, this is the coverage we're getting in this city and that city. If you're a city, geographic breakdown, you can do so on social media, but it probably doesn't have as much impact for you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you account for the larger metropolitan areas? Because it seems like we do get a lot of traffic. Like those areas are going to light up like New York, California, big cities. But we know that it might be a population thing. How do you account for that?
So are you concerned with that it's gonna skew your data from an audience perspective?
Yes.
Okay. So my recommendation there is again, to go back to the tiering of sources. If you separate or remove certain sources from your measurement and keep them as two separate metrics, where you have, tier 1, this is what we've got, and tier 2, this is what we've got, and you separate it national versus regional, you're going to start removing some of those skewed data sets that you might be concerned with. And then press release impact, right? So we sent out a press release, what happened to it, right? So did it get shared? Did it get published? Did it get picked up? Did people change what we said? Did people keep it word for word verbatim? So those are some of the PR and communication metrics side. On the social side, you get things like followers and new followers and percent change. It's pretty simple. If you get more followers, you've got a larger audience, that's a good thing. But then you have engagement, as we were talking about before, right? So it's not enough to just say, I got 100 new followers this month. A better metric to showcase the actual impact you have is the engagement rate. I got usually 5 likes per tweet last month. Now I'm getting 10 likes per tweet this month. People are paying more closely attention to what I'm saying. They're liking it better. Web traffic conversion, this is a good one. A lot of times people promote website properties and events and links and URLs using social media. There's a thing called UTM parameters. UTM parameter is basically a tracker where if you have Google Analytics, it allows you to see where your traffic came from. If you create a UTM for each of your channels, you're able to see which of your channels generate the most web traffic to a social media property. Take a landing page for an event, for example, a sign-up page. You say sign up here. You post it on LinkedIn, you post it on Twitter, you post it on Facebook. On the back end, you're able to see how many people came from each of those channels. And that helps you understand where people start to look for that type of event. And if 90% of your signups come from LinkedIn, when you have a similar event, focus on LinkedIn. Maybe post a couple extra things on LinkedIn because that's where you're going to have the highest chance of success. Audience engagement times, I touched upon this earlier. Depending on what kind of content you put out, and depending on what kind of agency you are, people pay attention to you at different times of day. And as you guys know, certain feeds are based off of time. The worst thing you can do is post a lot of interesting content at 2 in the morning where nobody pays attention, and then come 8 o'clock, it's already buried deep and you have much less chance, or much lower chance of people actually seeing your content. So if you look at what people, or when people are paying attention to you, schedule posts to go out right before then. And if you can even do it breaking it down further by the type of message you're putting out and the medium by which you're putting it out, you're going to maximize your chance that people not only pay attention to you, but respond to you. Content breakdown. This is what we were talking about before, links versus plain text versus images and videos. Again, it's good to have a good healthy balance so you switch up your content strategy a little bit. And then I like to highlight top posts and top influencers. What were the best things I did on social media this month? Who were the best people who talked about me? And these are good things to highlight because you can then say, if there's a big spike on a report, I like to put a little drag and drop arrow that says this is when this happened and I did this. That, again, showing success. Social share of voice. So you can think of this a couple different ways. Obviously, share of voice internally, just in terms of which of your channels get the most content. But if you are interested in seeing how many people talk about you, right? So now we're switching a bit more into the external conversation. How many people talk about you versus a congressman, for example, if that's the type of organization you are, or if you have if you're the city and you have the mayor account and then the city account. What do people pay more attention to? Are people more talking and tweeting at your city or at your mayor? And then reach and impressions. So comparing not only and kind of they do interchange depending on the channel, but how many people actually saw content, how many people follow you, how many people clicked on something. If you post videos on Facebook, it'll show you how people actually auto-played versus click-played. Right? Those are two different things. So these are all things that can help you showcase your performance, both on traditional and social media. Yes?
So just out of curiosity, what's the best one? What really shows the impact?
So I get asked that a lot, and I always have to answer it with a question back to you, which is, what do you seek to do? Right? What kind of story are you trying to tell? If your answer is something to the effect of, we're trying to grow public sentiment for a project that we're doing, right? We are trying to get approval for a new bridge. If people aren't talking about that bridge, that's a bad thing. So you want to get people to start talking about it and talking about it positively. In that instance, the best metrics would be volume, share of voice, and sentiment. That doesn't always apply. Sometimes it's, your goal is to, like I said before, have people start talking about a certain scandal that an elected official had, and they're going to do the exact opposite, right? So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve and the type of story you're trying to tell. And that's why I gave kind of like a bit of a menu of options, because learning what these metrics do and what their purpose are, that's really going to help you pick the best set of tools for you to tell your story.